from Without a Crystal Ball. I hope you guys are having a great day. I want to say it's Monday, so it's time to get back to some snark, some fun, and some updates on Teen Mom. And I am not a teen mom, and I'm also not a mom of any of Chris Lopez's children. All right, so let's talk about Kailyn Lowry. She is a mom that has a lot going on. Kailyn has a podcast with Lindsay Chrisley, Coffee Convos, and has recently launched a podcast with Joe Rivera's wife, V. They launched the podcast in late September, and it's called Baby Mamas No Drama. Now, on the show, the two of them talk about their relationship, parenting. They talk about where they've gone through sort of a history, where it all began, in a house of, and how we've changed. Now, in their most recent episode, Kailyn got really real about some things that she was forced to do against her will, in a way, by Chris Lopez. Now, before we get to that, do me a favor and make sure that you give this video a thumbs up, subscribe down here, and if you like this kind of content, make sure that you turn notifications on so you know when I go live or updates load. Now, let's get into the tea, because this is sort of tea, I guess, in a way. Kailyn Lowry is never one to shy away from drama, and ooh, this girl has so much of it. It's like bubbling to the surface. This has been one of those seasons on Teen Mom 2 where all of the things related to Kailyn are drama, 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 drama. There was the first episode where we had her worrying that Chris Lopez may have gotten another woman pregnant. Then there was the whole Javi thing with, him trying to slide into her house. And then, which ultimately led to her making an apology online to Lauren, and ultimately led to Lauren fleeing the state of Delaware in Maine to get away from Javi, and Javi ending up alone in Delaware with Lincoln. And yesterday he went to a Eagles game, and the two seats that would typically be occupied by Lauren and their son Eli were occupied by Lincoln's friends. Okay, got it? Now in this next episode coming up, she's going to be talking about moving because Chris apparently has little to no interest in getting to see Lux. And she was like, well, why did I move here to begin with? But before we go there, let's talk about what she talked about on the podcast. Let's talk about what she talked about. Ugh. All right. Now, on the podcast, she and V were actually talking about paternity and whether or not this is something, people need or should want. And Kailyn, for her part, opened up about how one of her exes, and we know this ex is obviously going to be who? Chris, because we already know that this didn't happen with Joe, and this certainly didn't happen with Javi. But she says that she was humiliated by one of her exes because they demanded that she have a paternity test when they found out she was pregnant. She then discussed how when she went into the office to get the swab for the paternity test, she had a less than positive experience with the woman at the clinic. So she said this on the podcast: I had to get a DNA test against my wishes. Interesting. I knew who the father was, but he didn't believe it. Now, in some states, when there are cases related to custody and the woman is not married, a paternity test is actually standard. For instance, Amber Portwood, who is on Teen Mom OG, is in the state of Indiana. For both of her children, she has actually had to have paternity tests to make sure that the fathers are in fact the men that claim to be the fathers. So both Andrew Glennon and Gary Shirley had paternity tests. So paternity tests as a whole are used by the court to establish paternity to make sure that a man is not obligated to pay child support for a kid that isn't his. So the court needs to verify, okay, yes, this is the father, because when a woman is not married, it is not established. A husband is automatically established as the father in a married couple. I know it's archaic, you guys. It's so sexist, but at the same time, I also understand the courts making sure and having to do what they need to do before they make an order, okay? So she says, I knew who I slept with and I never questioned any of my kids' dads. She also says that I go into the DNA place and the nurse gives me the test and says, so you don't know who the dad is? She flat out asked me. She says, when I tell you the humiliation that I felt, I knew who the dad was. I never questioned it. That was never a question in my mind. Yes, I know there are women who lie about who their kids' fathers are. I know women who have lied. I know that but that wasn't me. I'm not that type of person. So I can understand her feeling humiliated, but at the same time, I'm guessing that this is a standard question that a nurse might be asking, perhaps not as tactfully, although we weren't in the room, so we don't really know how it was asked. Could it have been, do you know who the father's paternity is? Is there a question about paternity? Do you not know who your child's father is? You know, who knows? But there's probably a lot of women that walk into this clinic that have no idea, and so they do the paternity test. So while it might have felt insensitive to her by the nurse, I'm guessing she took it personally, not because of what the nurse said, but because of how Chris treated her. Because she, in her heart, knew that this was the only person that she had been with, and therefore the only possible father for her kids. So then that anger and upsetness towards Chris is then projected on the nurse, which I notice happens a lot with Kailyn. She does a lot of projection. I get it, Kailyn, you've had a hard life. Okay, she then went on to say, I am in the public eye. Why the F would I put myself in the position where I don't know who the damn dad is? Wow, I was embarrassed. That's not okay. Don't humiliate me for no reason. I know who the dad is. I couldn't believe that nurse said that. I had tears running down my face. I was so humiliated. First of all, I understand that she's feeling humiliated, but I really feel like this should not be anger towards the nurse. Again, I feel like this should be anger towards Chris. But I also want to caveat this that, like, you shouldn't feel humiliated if you have to do a paternity test. If you are an adult that is making decisions to be active with more than one partner, one of the things that can happen, regardless if you use protection or not, is pregnancy. It's a reality. So I don't feel like there should be humiliation by not knowing unless you project that onto yourself. In this case, I feel like she is mad at Chris, or he has made her feel like maybe she's the one that has been, going around, right? Which if she's single, she can do that. She can do whatever she wants. So if Chris is making her feel that way and then she's projecting it on the nurse, I honestly feel like she should have just gone for the dad in this case, because it's really the dad's fault. The humiliation she's feeling is not because of the nurse. The humiliation she is feeling is because of the dad making her do this, right? Okay. Now, moving on. Kailyn is also planning to move. She literally just bought an $830,000 home. Yeah, that's right. 5,000 square feet, out 45 minutes from where she was in Dover to be closer to Chris. Well, in the new upcoming episode, which will air tomorrow, she talks about how Chris has not used this opportunity of her moving closer to actually see Lux. She talks on the phone to her friend and says, I thought moving here would make him want to see Lux more, but it's really not the case. Why would I be here if there's no reason to be here? Because the two guys that want to be involved in my kids' lives have to drive further now to see their kids. And the guy that wants no part of his kids, I live by, and he's not even making an effort. So she is going to already look at new houses. Mind you, she literally just closed on that house last fall. She has owned that home less than a year, and she is already looking for a new home. And she was actually talking about this last winter, about how she wanted to be out of there because the home never felt like hers, and that, people already knew where she lived. I don't know if she understands mortgages, but generally speaking, when you buy a new house, moving right away, unless you rent the property, is going to put you in a tax predicament. So I feel like Kailyn needs some financial advice here of, before making impulsive decisions to move, perhaps thinking about what the long-term consequences are and the financial aspects and penalties when you buy a house. You generally don't buy a house thinking you're going to move in a year or even 5 months or right away, right? Once you sign on that dotted line and you owe that mortgage lender money, If you sell that within the first few years, you can get taxed. There's so many penalties. So Kailyn, you at least have to stay there for a couple years or you're going to take a huge hit. Sometimes I honestly wonder if she thinks things through when she makes decisions or if she just does what she feels at the time. I don't know. So what do you guys think about her already wanting to move after literally just plunking down $830,000 onto this home that she swore was her dream home and now she literally hates? And what do you think about her being humiliated and taking it out on the nurse when she really should have been taking it out on Chris? All right, you guys, I would love to know what your thoughts are. Tell me them in the comments below. Bye, guys.